People love making up stories, and have done so ever since the dawn of time. However, there are some urban legends and myths that have gained worldwide fame. From crazy animals to intentions to take over the world. Stay tuned to find out what some historians think actually happened to Hitler. Number 10. Shapeshifters. The idea of shapeshifters has been around since ancient times. The premise of shapeshifting is that a being has the ability to transform its original shape completely, so that it's literally unrecognizable. This is done through some kind of magic spell, or otherworldly intervention, or an inherent ability. One of the most famous forms of this includes so-called therianthropy, or the ability of a human being to change into an animal, or vice versa. The concept of shapeshifting is directly responsible for beings such as vampires or werewolves, but also some gods and goddesses from ancient civilizations, which changed their form to resemble humans or animals. In the modern world, this is generally dismissed as hogwash, but there are testimonies from the indigenous tribes of shamans or sometimes demons who are capable of shapeshifting. These individuals with magical powers can go inside of an animal, assuming its soul, and move around while seeing the world through their eyes. Number 9. Walt Disney Frozen. No, we're not talking about the animated movie Frozen. We're talking about the actual person, Walt Disney, who is believed to have been cryogenically frozen after his death. At least, that's what the urban legend tells us. The whole story about his cryogenic freezing goes something like this. It's believed that in the future, medicine will be so developed that people could be brought back to life after being frozen. This was especially modern in the 1960s, and allegedly, Walt Disney once expressed a desire to be cryogenically frozen in the hopes of being thawed and reanimated in the future. This is also what Bob Nelson said in 1972, the then president of the California Cryogenic Society. He went on record to state that Walt Disney had indeed wanted to be frozen. On the other hand, Disney's daughter clearly stated that this is a complete lie. She claimed that her father was not cryogenically frozen and that he had never wanted to be. Walt Disney's daughter has repeated a number of times that her father was cremated and that his ashes were scattered at the Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. Number 8. El Chupacabra. El Chupacabra is a Spanish name which can literally be translated as goatsucker. This is a creature that drinks the blood of goats and other livestock. It resembles a reptile with a leathery skin and a pronounced spine. Over the years, there have been many alleged sightings of this beast, and the first such sighting happened in 1995 in Puerto Rico. 8 sheep were found dead. All of their blood had been drained from their bodies, and they had a puncture wound on their chest. This happened in March, but later that same year, around 150 additional farm animals were killed. However, this is still just a myth, as none of it has ever been proven. And in order to establish the fact that an animal has been drained of its blood, you would have to perform a necropsy. However, an analysis undertaken by a veterinarian showed that 300 animals, all alleged victims of El Chupacabra, did not actually die as consequence of blood draining. A biologist from the University of Michigan, Barry O'Connor, analyzed some of El Chupacabra's supposed victims and came up with his own conclusion. According to O'Connor, El Chupacabras from the US were nothing more than infected coyotes. These coyotes probably had a certain type of parasitic infection that was causing them to assume the appearance of a crazy-looking animal, bad smell, thick skin, and little to no fur, and were so dubbed El Chupacabra. Since the sick coyotes are very weak, it is easier for them to attack livestock rather than to run after rabbits or similar animals. Do you think El Chupacabra exists? Tell us in the comments below. Number 7. Chaplin's Time Traveler. This urban legend came to life in 2010 when a filmmaker from Northern Ireland uploaded a clip that he named Chaplin's Time Traveler. This clip talks about the bonus material found on the DVD for Charlie Chaplin's film The Circus from 1928. In one particular scene, a woman can be seen holding her left hand close to her ear. It appears that the woman is holding an object that closely resembles a mobile phone. It's a small, black device, and the idea was that it could be a mobile phone. Thus, the only logical explanation is that the woman was, in fact, a time traveler, sent back to 1928 from the present day. The video clip was so popular that it immediately received millions of views. There was even a lot of TV news talking about the clip. However, a possible explanation of the mysterious woman and her object was that it wasn't a mobile phone at all, but instead a portable hearing aid. At the time that Chaplins circus was being filmed, this style of portable hearing aid had just been developed. Nevertheless, there are still people who refuse to accept this answer and believe that the woman in the film was a visitor from the future. Number 6. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. This is probably the best example of a document-propelled urban legend. This document was allegedly composed from the minutes of a famous meeting that took place in the 19th century. The meeting itself was held by Jewish leaders who had discussed and documented their plans for world domination. As the story goes, they were planning to convert all people on earth to Judaism and introduce Jewish hegemony worldwide. The protocols were originally introduced in Russia in the early 20th century, but soon spread to other parts of the world as well. Some claim that Henry Ford himself ordered 1 million protocols to be issued and funded the printing from his own coffers. The document was also extensively used in Nazi propaganda as an attempt to destroy the Jewish people and condemn them as global criminals and conspirators. Numerous people have so far proven that the whole document was a hoax right from the start, and it was first famously exposed as fraudulent by the London Times back in 1921. The purpose of creating such a document as a hoax was to prevent the Jews from assuming any kind of political power in Europe. However, although it's been stated time and time again that the protocols were assembled from multiple sources and that there is no chance that they're a valid document, many people refuse to accept this. The document can still be found translated into many languages on the internet, and to this day, many people still take it as an original source. Number 5. Lincoln-Kennedy correlation. Among all the spooky correlations and coincidences in history, this is probably the weirdest one. There is an enormous list of things that happen in both of the men's lives that are incredibly similar. This gave rise to a famous urban legend and conspiracy theory that both Presidents Lincoln and Kennedy were assassinated because they were fighting for civil rights. But the truth is that there are more spooky similarities between the two. To name just a handful of them, both died from a shot in the head, both were shot on a Friday, with their wives next to them, and both were accompanied by other couples at the time of their assassination. Both were killed in 63 of their respective centuries, and both were elected president in 60 of their respective centuries. Both former presidents were assassinated by a Southerner, and both were succeeded by a man named Johnson. To get even more spooky, both assassins were born in 39 of their respective century, and both assassins were murdered before their trial even began. Believe it or not, this list goes on and on. Although many of the correlations between Lincoln and Kennedy are probably pure coincidence, many people believe there's more to it than that, and have even made reference to an urban legend that a chief from a Native American tribe placed a curse on all future rulers of the United States. Number 4. The Flying Dutchman. This is one of the most famous maritime legends. The Flying Dutchman is the name of a famous ghost ship doomed to sail the seas forever because it can never make port. It's not clear when or how this story originated, but most likely it was started in the 18th century and is based upon the stories about ships from the Dutch East India Company. Over the years, there have been numerous alleged sightings of this ship, and sailors claim to see it glowing in the night with some strange ghostly light. In maritime circles, it is generally considered to be bad luck to have seen this ship, and if a sighting takes place, it probably means that something terrible is about to happen to the sailor's ship. Many sightings have allegedly happened in the 19th and 20th century, but nowadays, the whole story about the Flying Dutchman is dismissed as pirate lore, with the most logical explanation being that it's a prime example of Fata Morgana, a superior mirage that happens due to differences in air temperature. Nevertheless, stories of the Flying Dutchman linger on. Number 3. The Loch Ness Monster. This is a famous legend about a strange creature who lives in the deep waters of the Scottish Loch Ness. Locals usually refer to the creature as Nessie. This legend started in 1933 when Alex Campbell wrote a report about the Loch Ness Monster. A couple of months after Campbell's report, there was a new article. This time, it was about a London couple who saw the monster while driving around the lake. They saw some kind of beast that resembled a prehistorical or mythical animal. The first photograph of the Loch Ness Monster was taken on December 6, 1933, and it was published in the Daily Express newspaper, and from that point on, there was no chance of stopping the legend from evolving. Throughout the years, there have been numerous sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. While some of these sightings have been classified as animal misidentifications or hoaxes, people still believe that an ancient creature resides below the surface of the Loch Ness. Number 2. Yeti. This one comes from Nepal. The story revolves around an ape-like creature, bigger than average man, which is living in the area around the Himalayas. Although the story was popularized in the 19th century, it is in fact much older. The Yeti has been around since ancient times, even in the pre-Buddhist folklore of many peoples from the Himalayan region. They worshipped a strange god of the hunt who allegedly lived deep in the glaciers. When the first European explorers came in the 19th century, they listened to all kinds of stories and probably added something of their own imagination to them. Once photography was introduced, images even started to show up, including photographs of big footprints in the snow. Possible explanations of this include the Tibetan blue bear, the Himalayan brown bear, as well as other, possibly unidentified animals. But who knows for sure? Number 1. Hitler in Argentina. Although the official story is that Adolf Hitler committed suicide in his Berlin bunker in 1945, many people still feel this is a topic of debate. One of the most widespread legends is that Hitler actually fled to Argentina and that he lived there until his death. British authors Simon Dunstan and Gerard Williams published a book about Hitler's alleged escape to Argentina, in which they proposed that Hitler escaped before he could be captured. There, he was planning to come to power again and establish the Fourth Reich. According to this version of history, the Fourth Reich luckily never came to be, and Hitler died in 1962. Dunstan and Williams claim that Hitler was taken to Argentina in a U-boat, where he was met with the support of President Juan Perón. Perón had been receiving money from the Nazis for some time, and he agreed to take Hitler and a number of people from his staff, offering them protection. A number of mainstream historians have dismissed this theory and, for obvious reasons, found it ridiculous. It is simply impossible to believe that such a secret could have been kept for almost 20 years until Hitler's death in 1962. But the question still remains. If Hitler had the chance to escape, would he do it? Or would he prefer to have committed suicide and ended his own life in a Berlin bunker? What do you think? We really want to hear from you in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date on all of the latest from Zero to Hero. Take care!